welcome to all of our candidates this evening. Again, I'm Scott Shields with Family Tree, and I'll be facilitating and moderating this breakout room. This session is dedicated to those of you who want to hear from House Representative candidates in Districts 1, 22, 23, 25, and 28. Similarly to how we handled the prior breakouts, each set of candidates has been given a predetermined question, and we'll have 2 minutes to answer. We will start the timer after I ask each candidate the question. So let's get started with House District 1 and Representative Susan Lontine and candidate Samantha Cook. Unfortunately, Representative Lontine was unable to attend this evening and be with us. So we're going to start here with candidate Cook. Candidate Cook, your question is concerning transportation. How will you use your role to help bolster the funding for public transportation infrastructure, multimodal or other innovative approaches, since access is difficult or limited for those who we serve? You have 2 minutes. Thank you. Ms. Cook, are you here with us? Ms. Cook? Okay, it looks like either we don't have Ms. Cook with us this evening or we're having some technical difficulties. If we catch up with her, we'll have her, we'll go back to her question and put her on a little bit later. So now we're going to go to House District 22 and Representative Cullen Larson and candidate Mary Parker. Representative Larson, we'll start with you, and your question deals with health. How will you help ensure low-income, at-risk, and vulnerable populations will have access to appropriate and timely care, both physical and mental health?
Well, great. Thank you for that question, Scott, and thank you everyone for having me. I guess this is my 3rd year attending. Glad that this event was still able to take place regardless of the COVID pandemic. So, you know, the question that's asked, I think it's different for each of the groups that are present today. So for instance, when you're talking about the developmentally disabled community, access means a very different thing than, for instance, when you're talking about a senior community or a vulnerable low-income community. I do a lot of work with Stepping Stone Support Center, which is a day center in House District 22. And I can tell you throughout the pandemic, their biggest access issues for healthcare, frankly, were transportation. As many of you may know, the RTD cutbacks on their bus routes have had an indirect, side effect on the accessoride routes, which was frankly posing for a little while there, we were worried in House District 22 that we were going to lose the ability for accessoride to access the only day center that's in the district. Thankfully, I was able to work with Peggy Catlin, the RTD commissioner there for our area, to ensure that those accessoride cuts did not happen. But, you know, I've definitely been somebody who looks at these problems rather than a holistic overarching solution that oftentimes misses, frankly, a lot of these discrete and individual problems. I tend to approach problems in specific ways. So for instance, for the developmental disability community, last year I was able to get a bill passed, House Bill 1223 with Daphne Michelson Janae, a Democrat from Adams County, to provide Social Security disability income application assistance, which I know has been a tremendous boon to the IDD community. Similarly, when it comes to seniors care, that sort of thing, I've worked with Stride Community Health Centers, which provides a fee-for-service model that they're not quite in the South Jeffco area. We've been working to try to get a location near Dutch Creek Elementary School. Fingers crossed that will come to fruition, but they have been providing low income and fee-for-service services, primary care primarily, throughout Jefferson County. So it's through those kind of innovative solutions and through additional bipartisan work that I think we're going to be able to address, frankly, what is probably 5 or 6 discrete issues that are contained in that question. So, and I've certainly worked on that during my last 2 years, and I look forward to continuing to work on that when I'm reelected in November.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Candidate Parker, you have an opportunity to answer the same question. How will you help ensure low-income, at-risk, and vulnerable populations will have access to appropriate and timely care, both physical and mental health?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much for also for hosting this even during a time of COVID. I've been a court-appointed special advocate for 13 years working with neglected and abused children in Jefferson County. I'm very glad that Medicaid's been there for these kids to give them the necessary health and physical and mental health needs that they have. In addition, there are mental health and substance abuse programs for their parents. But these services are stretched to their very limits, and not every healthcare provider takes Medicaid. Also, the system is pretty hard to navigate. I'm also mentoring a young woman who has just aged out of the foster care system, and she's working as a home care and a hospice care worker, and I've learned a lot from her about the needs of that special population. What we have now in our country is a mixture, a very complex mixture of options, and everyone, not just the at-risk population, finds themselves thrashing back and forth between different programs. Seasonal workers especially go back and forth between employer-based healthcare and Medicaid with gap periods in between. I support universal single-payer healthcare, but I know that we have a long road to hoe to get there. Unfortunately, healthcare has become a polarized political issue, and we have to do a lot of public information efforts to convince people that the free market that we've had for decades is not appropriate in the field of healthcare. And I say that as a small business owner. The public health option that the legislature planned to introduce in 2020 is a good first start towards getting universal affordable health care. I'll continue to work at the state level to make sure that that is available. And finally, I just want to tell you I appreciate so much the services that the organizations here provide, because supporting children and families has been the main focus of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Parker. And now we're going to move on to the candidates for House District 23 and Representative Chris Kennedy and candidate Fred Clifford. Unfortunately, candidate Clifford was unable to join us this evening. So Representative Kennedy, I believe you're here with us this evening, and your question concerns housing. How would you use your office to address housing, specifically access to housing, for example, including various types or arrangements, and affordability?
Well, thank you for the question, Scott, and thank you all for having me here tonight. You know, I want to start by pointing out that we have done an awful lot for housing over the last 2 years, some of which unfortunately had to be scaled back because of the pandemic, but it's worth mentioning nonetheless. In 2019, we made major investments, both from the Unclaimed Property Trust Fund and also by closing some certain special interest loopholes that have made it possible for us to make unprecedented investments in affordable housing development. We've also doubled the low-income housing tax credit and added numerous renters protections, including limitations on application fees, warranty of habitability, extended time to cure a lease payment issue before eviction, and an eviction legal defense fund. We also in 2019 increased the PTC rebate program, which provides support for both low-income seniors and low-income disabled people who are struggling to afford their housing or their utility bills. So I'm really proud of the work we've done to provide those investments so far. Unfortunately, some of those did indeed get scaled back this last year, but we did target $20 million of the federal aid we received into housing supports. We also passed a bill prohibiting discrimination against people based on their source of income, so that people who are trying to find good housing with a Section 8 voucher don't have to be turned away by so many places where they'd like to live, and instead can take that Section 8 voucher and use it anywhere. When I look to the future, I think it's going to be a challenge because the growth in Denver Metro has far exceeded the supply of housing. That's what's driven the prices so high. And so we're going to continue to have to invest in building affordable housing where it's needed for people who need it. And I also believe we're going to need to increase our investments in programs like the PTC, which I mentioned earlier, which are critical for both seniors and disabled people who are struggling to afford their housing. So that's my time and that's my answer, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Representative Kennedy. And now we're going to move on to House District 25 and Representative Lisa Cutter and candidate Don Rozier. Representative Cutter, I believe, will be represented tonight by her campaign manager, Jimmy Dixon. And so Jimmy, the question posed for Representative Cutter deals with employment. Many of the people we serve want and need to work. How will you help address the challenges they face? For example, transportation, training, childcare, the need for flexibility, etc., and work with employers to help open doors for them.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the representative tonight, and thank you for the question. Let me start by saying that Representative Cutter takes a big picture view of the workforce. To her, this means working to make sure that people are healthy and happy in all aspects of their life so that they can be productive members of society. Supporting workers can be direct, such as ensuring that wages are fair and livable, but it can also be indirect, such as working towards a robust education system, which benefits future workers by providing a high-quality education. This approach also supports current workers who would benefit immensely from their children enjoying a full 5-day school schedule. As you know, many of our schools throughout the state have gone to 4-day school schedules, which is really tough on parents. That said, Lisa Cutter will always support anything to help and enhance people's ability to work. That means supporting the proper training, like she has through Senate Bill 009, which expanded the Adult Education Grant Program, Bill 158, which provides professional training for educators. It also means helping people adapt to new and existing challenges, like changing childcare needs, through bills like 126, which allowed home childcare in HOA communities. The pandemic has made clear how necessary it is for our workers to be guaranteed basic protections, such as sick leave and family leave. Our workers need to be able to take the time needed to care for themselves and for their families. This ensures that they are their best when they're at work, and also that they are not forced by circumstances beyond their control to work when it would create an unsafe environment for their fellow workers and for customers. Throughout the pandemic, Representative Cutter has worked closely with the Evergreen and Conifer Chambers of Commerce to ensure that constituents, both employers and employees and employers, were able to access the resources they needed to survive and thrive through the pandemic. She has worked hard to ensure she's available to all her constituents and will continue to listen to them as she works to address the challenges we are facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Candidate Rozier, you have the same question. Many of the people we serve want and need to work. How will you help address the challenges they face? For example, transportation, training, childcare, and the need for flexibility, and work with employers to help open doors for them.
Well, thank you, Scott. And it's wonderful to be here with you all tonight. And it's great seeing so many of you that that I've worked with during my 2 terms as a Jefferson County Commissioner. A big shout out to Joan. Hey, Joan, I see you. I miss seeing you on stage providing sign language interpretation for everybody. And it's always a tough job trying to keep up with us fast talking politicians here. You know, over the last years, through open communication, hard work, and dedication, we made it through some difficult times, and we celebrated many successes. I will bring that same dedication and work ethic with me to the state legislature that you saw as commissioner, utilizing my years of professional business experience and that of being a commissioner to work with you all, with the individuals and nonprofits represented here this evening and those who are not, to collaborate to coordinate, to develop plans that work for you, not against you. We succeed through that power of partnership. You are the boots on the ground, the subject matter experts. You know what is happening. As elected officials and candidates, we must all act, and we must all listen. With public transportation struggling and services being cut, we need to expand transportation opportunities by working with rideshare companies and nonprofits for issuance of community ride vouchers to go directly where you need to go on your own schedule, to provide private business tax incentives for training, to remove the numerous licensing regulations and onerous fees so often assessed, and to allow quick and efficient employment transition as needed. We also need to provide those tax credits for those organizations and our parents and guardians who need them. And, you know, I know I'm getting close on time. Over the past few legislative sessions, fees and regulatory restrictions have increased, making it more difficult for many individuals to be employed or stay employed. Local legislators even threatened to remove the senior property tax incentives this last legislative season or session. All these actions only hurt the most vulnerable in our communities, especially those seniors wishing to age in place. This overreach must stop. I'm Donald Rozier, candidate for State House District 25. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Rozier. And now we're going to move on to House District 28 and Representative Carrie Tipper and candidate Pete Roybal. Unfortunately, candidate Roybal was unable to join us this evening. And so we will begin with Representative Tipper, and you will be answering a question regarding transportation. How will you use your role to help bolster the funding for public transportation infrastructure, multimodal or other innovative approaches, since access is difficult or limited for those we serve? Representative Tipper, are you with us this evening?
She was just on. I'll text her really quick just to see in case she had an internet issue.
Thank you, Representative Kennedy. I think while we're waiting to see if Representative Tipper is there, I understand that Samantha Cook is with us. Samantha Cook is a candidate for House District 1. And so if we could go back and give her an opportunity to answer the question, again, same question, even though different House districts, the question concerning transportation. How will you use your role to help bolster the funding for public transportation infrastructure, multimodal or other innovative approaches, since access is difficult or limited for those we serve?
Sorry, I just realized I was on mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Just making sure. You know, I absolutely feel like, you know, Colorado is interesting in the way that it's set up, and we do have limited means of expanding some of our roads and our transportation. I am all on board for improving our public transportation and our transit routes, you know, making them more accessible. You know, I used to live in an area, not in Colorado, that it was just really easy to access, you know, different levels of transportation. And I feel like it's not as easy here. So to really, you know, bring back the communication with us in the transportation industry and, you know, what they need from us. I kind of feel like, you know, the pandemic is not related to transportation, but I think it really has highlighted the need to put the power in the hands of the experts and let people, you know, come together in communication and create, you know, whether a task force or a committee or something like that to, or areas like that to bring in people's voices who really understand the industry and what can be improved. You know, sometimes too much political involvement can make a bigger mess than actually solve problems. So, you know, we need to bring people in that understand the needs of the community, to communicate on the best ways to improvement and really take our cues from people who understand the industries in the best way.
Thank you, Candidate Cook. I think I saw in our shuffling there, I think I saw Representative Tipper. So hopefully you're back with us now. And again, you will answer the same question regarding transportation. How will you use your role to help bolster the funding for public transportation infrastructure, multimodal or other innovative approaches, since access is difficult or limited for those we serve?
Hi, good evening, and thank you for the little bit of grace. I have a 10-day-old daughter that I'm sort of juggling here, who's right next to me, but thank you. Talking about the spirit of bipartisanship, as soon as you called my name, Colin Larson, the county commissioners, and some of the other folks on here texted me saying, you're up, you're up. So first of all, thank you for having me, and to answer your question, I'll start a little bit the way Representative Kennedy did, which is talk about what we actually did do. We made some big investments in 2018 into actual multimodal transportation systems. So it was almost $95 million. I think anyone particularly that's been in Colorado for at least 5 years, maybe 10 years, can understand how strained our roads are, but also, and I think more importantly, our overall transportation system. And what we have been looking towards in the legislature are trying to find solutions that go beyond building more highways, widening highways, because that really serves a pretty narrow group of individuals and doesn't actually address the transportation needs. So that big investment of $95 million went to both local multimodal transportation options as well as some, a small percentage to state multimodal. In addition, and what's been difficult is because of COVID, shutting down the session early, one of the bills that we were looking at was trying to give RTD a little bit more flexibility in terms of setting rates and fares so that they could actually lower rates and make them more accessible. In order to do that, they have to be able to generate revenue in a different way. That legislation didn't make it through because of COVID. I see I have 19 seconds left, so I want to just plug something else. It's going to be tough going forward if I'm reelected and anyone else that's in the legislature, but we have to prioritize transportation, and we really need to look to find sustainable long-term sources of revenue for transportation solutions that, like I said, go beyond just widening lanes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Representative Tipper. And thank you for being with us this evening in spite of all you have going on. And thank you to all of our candidates for your very thoughtful answers. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us in the breakout room tonight. We're now going to go back to the main room, and we'll have 2 more drawings for gift cards to some of our great local Jeffco barbecue restaurants and some closing comments. Thank you.